Hey there, friends. Welcome back to another Legally on America video. I'm, of course, Paul Glasgow here. Are we having fun yet? Are we having fun yet? Be honest. Wow. What a day yesterday was. I don't know if you had a chance to see the video. I actually took the full unedited video and cut out the beginning of it and cut out the end of it and left the middle where the fireworks were completely unedited so that you guys could see what really was said. If you didn't get a chance to see it, go look at it yesterday. Mine is not chopped up. Again, it's from the time it starts to the time it ends, there's no edits in there. That's important because people are going to say, and somebody already has in my comment section, that I edited the video. It's not edited. If you call chopping off the BS at the beginning and the BS at the end, where people are gathering things up, edited, whatever. But nothing of the conversation where things got heated is edited in any kind of way. I'm going to tell you some things today. This is an educational video today. I'm going to tell you some things today that you might not already know. I am a history nerd, so I pay attention to a lot of things when they're happening, and sometimes I sit back and I wonder, why is this happening now? 5-10 years later, you find out that's why it was happening now. You're going to see some of that today. Zelensky didn't get to cry very long in D.C. yesterday because he immediately hopped on his airplane and flew to London so he could cry on the shoulders of the rest of Europe over there. First, I want to hit on some of the very obvious things, okay? And I'm going to refer down to my notes a couple of times today, so forgive me for that. I want to make it very clear. The meeting yesterday between Zelensky and Donald Trump, that was a meeting to sign a mineral deal with Ukraine and the United States. The mineral deal was a repayment. This was not a deal for us to do something more for Ukraine. This is a deal that Donald Trump had initiated, and Marco Rubio and J.D. Vance went to Europe and negotiated with Zelensky. This was a repayment of the $350 billion that we had already given them for free. No loan, nothing like that. The Biden administration was not going to expect anything in return. We were just going to keep sinking money into that country over there in a failed war effort. And Donald Trump was like, no, the people of America deserve better than this. We're not the piggy bank of the world, although we seem to be sometimes. So I want to make it very, very clear. I want you guys to understand, this was not a deal of something going forward. It was as far as retrieving the money and the minerals from Ukraine. They were going to use the mineral rights and the mineral contract and the mineral agreement that we were going to strike with them and sign as a way to collect that to repay us. Now, I don't know where it would have gone once we reached $350 million worth of minerals from them, but nevertheless, it was not a deal for them to receive something from us going forward. It was to benefit us going forward, not them. It was, again, simply repayment of what we now were going to consider a loan. And look, just a quick side note. It's really important that we look at money going out and money being considered a loan. If it's just giving somebody something like a gift, a whole lot different things happen to it versus a loan. The rest of Europe has loaned Ukraine money, not given it to them like we gave it to them. When you have a loan, first of all, it's expected to be repaid. Second, you have interest involved. So Europe is going to make money off of Ukraine in the long run if they receive their payment, of course. We weren't going to receive anything. Not only were we not going to get our money back, we weren't going to profit off of it with a markup based on the interest that we would have accrued, like their neighbors are doing right now. But make no mistake that this mineral deal could have been signed last week in either Munich or in Kyiv. But it wasn't, because Zelensky demanded to go to D.C. to meet with Trump in order to sign the deal. Again, that was already negotiated. He wasn't coming to D.C. for them to negotiate the deal. He was coming to take pictures and to sign the actual deal itself. Again, that had been negotiated already last week and agreed upon. So if the mineral deal was already negotiated and he was simply coming to sign, then why was there a dust-up? To be fair here, it wasn't that Zelensky immediately went back on his words, so to speak. In other words, he wasn't trying to renege the entire deal. What he was trying to do is tie some additional things that we would give them as part of the deal that had already been negotiated with none of that involved in it. What he was wanting, and you've probably heard this term many times since yesterday, a security guarantee. That's what he wanted. He wanted to, of course, do the mineral deal to repay us for all the money that we had given him, but he didn't think that Putin would honor anything regarding us getting the mineral deal as being part of some kind of a peace agreement. So he thought Putin would just continue on. So what he wanted was a security guarantee, of course, that you've heard many, many times. You know what that means, right? The only way the United States can guarantee anybody's security is to get directly involved. The man wanted us to get directly involved. He didn't want more money. In fact, they don't have enough people. You heard J.D. Vance talk about the forced conscripts over there. They don't have enough people to manage all the stuff that we're giving them right now. They don't have enough troops to fight the war. We can give them more machinery, more weapons, all those types of things. They don't have the personnel to man those to fight. So at this point, a security guarantee is not more money, although he would like more money because it would go into his account. More on that in a second. But he's not asking for more money. He's asking for more money and more people. He wanted the security guarantee to be us going in there if Russia decided to still invade Ukraine after this peace agreement or the ceasefire was negotiated between Trump, Putin, and Zelensky. Zelensky simply did not believe that Putin would honor that agreement. But what you have to understand is any kind of a, quote, security guarantee that would include American troops, American personnel on Ukraine's soil, that would have completely stopped the deal with Putin in any way. No, there's no way anything would have been accomplished regarding any kind of a peace agreement or a ceasefire or anything with Putin if it meant us putting U.S. troops on the soil over there. And Trump knew this. So you might be thinking, well, how did the mineral deal keep Putin at bay? Very simple. And this is, when you hear it, it makes perfect sense. Trump knew what he was doing. Trump might say stupid things, but Trump ain't stupid. The mineral deal would mean what? It would mean us pulling minerals out of the ground in Ukraine. When I say us, I mean the United States. We would have had American citizens, American companies, American businesses, and no doubt American troops also to guard those facilities in Ukraine. Do you think Putin is stupid enough to fight in those areas and to try to take over more ground in Ukraine, knowing that we are there doing something with civilians to repay ourselves for what we've already invested in Ukraine? Putin doesn't want us giving more money to Ukraine because that means more weapons to fight Russia. Putin may not want American businesses over there because it does kind of throw a little bit of a kink into his plans. Putin is smart enough to know that if they come over here and start to mine these minerals from the Ukraine land, we're not trying to proceed into any other parts of Ukraine. They won't try to take any additional territory. And you don't think that Trump and even Ukraine, for the sake of trying to provide that same level of stoppage from Putin, you don't think that they would have partnered up to strategically find locations over there to mine those precious minerals? The whole country, and it's not a big country anyway, but the whole country is right with those precious minerals over there. So it's not like they have to go to some obscure mountain location where there's no fighting going on. They could have put it right on Russia's doorstep near the border of Ukraine and Russia, just to prevent any further intrusion from Russia into Ukraine. So this would have been a great thing for Zelensky. So why would Zelensky turn that down? Because he has to be smart enough to know that the mere presence of Americans over there would have prevented Putin from progressing any more into Ukraine. It's because Zelensky might not want the war to end. He has profited from this war personally. Now, not to the tune that you hear some of the rumors out there, but he has profited from this war. He's worth, according to Forbes, about $20 million. And I may get some of these numbers wrong, but I'll put the data on screen and you can tell me that I was wrong or whatever by reading what I'm sending you. But nevertheless, it's going to show you what I'm trying to tell you. I believe currently Forbes is valuing Zelensky at about $20 million. Now, he does have a vested interest in a comedy media company that he has signed off or signed over to his partners. And then once he finishes scamming the people of Ukraine and goes back into the private life, he'll get his shares back, no doubt. I believe he's got a flat or two in the Ukraine area worth $4 or $5 million. So he's got some things out there. I believe there was some mention that he was worth $60 million or whatever at some point, and that's been disproven at this point. But I will say this is the most, behind the United States and everybody else, Ukraine is the most corrupt country in the world. Don't believe your numbers. I'm certainly not saying just because Forbes said it that it's true. That's what they have on the record. The guy's worth $20 million. There's no telling what he's got in private accounts, offshore accounts, and things like that. He might be worth $60 to $100 million, and likely is. I'm just saying, on paper, that we can prove he's worth $20 million right now. And they've disproven the 3 houses in Miami or whatever, and the yacht, and the Bugatti. I mentioned the Bugatti yesterday. I was incorrect about that. That supposedly has been disproven also. Now, he can afford to buy all those things if he wants to, but supposedly he does not have them, or at least there's no proof of them right now. Now, I want to slightly shift gears a little bit more because I'm trying to provide some background so everybody understands. And I think it's important that everybody understands what's truly happening with this Ukraine situation. Not just a video from yesterday, but the history behind how we got here overall. Because it's not what you think, and it's certainly not as simple as what you think. One of the things that's very simple, and the left has tried to say that this is not the case, and they say it repeatedly, is that, Russia wanting to take over Ukraine. It's not about NATO. It's about Russia wanting to have more space, more, land, and, just take over more countries. And once they get Ukraine, they're going to move on to Poland and all that, which that'll never happen. It's about NATO. It's absolutely about NATO. If you look at some of the old maps that I've got right here, you're going to see that NATO, and you know what NATO means, is you attack one member of NATO, which includes Canada and the United States also, then you attack all NATO members. So the danger is if you are the enemy of NATO and you attack any of these countries, whether it's Norway, France, or anybody else, United States or Canada, you're essentially attacking everybody that you see in dark blue right here, which again includes Canada and the United States. So it's really a pact designed to, I guess you could say, encourage world peace. In a way, to encourage world peace. But it's not necessarily doing that, because in this case, it provoked Russia. We have done some things over the years that have not been kind. We know this. I think all of us will agree that the CIA and the United States have done some really horrible things to destabilize different parts of the world. If you look at the countries in navy blue, that was essentially NATO, again, with Canada and the United States up until 1989. And Russia was pretty much okay with that. Now, you'll remember, before Russia became Russia again, it was the USSR. And it included a lot of these countries that you see that are either new to NATO or are not in NATO right now, including Ukraine. So you see some of these lighter blue colors. Those are more recent additions to NATO over the years since 1989. Of course, you can see the ones in gray. Those are ones who are not in NATO yet. This is a little bit older map. Sweden, since then, has been brought to the table as far as being in NATO, and so has Finland up at the very top there. So Ukraine desperately wants to be part of NATO. An agreement that was made many, many years ago was that we would not bring NATO to the doorstep of, back then it was USSR, but right now Russia. So the Belarus and the Ukraine area that you see right there that's in gray, that is a buffer between the other NATO nations and Russia. And a lot of this, it goes way back to, you remember the Cuban Missile Crisis. We didn't want Russian missiles 60 miles from our coast. We didn't want them from that close to our border. Well, Russia doesn't want American missiles 60 miles from their border. So I think we're singing the same tune as far as not wanting to have these nations right there. And they know if those are NATO nations that we're going to park our missiles right there next to their border. So, of course, they don't want that. And that's been a big fight all along. That's why Russia has taken over parts of Ukraine and of course, Crimea was essentially given to Putin by Obama, and which, honestly, guys, other than Ukraine, the Ukrainian people down in Crimea, they don't like Ukraine. They consider themselves Russians. That's why there was no real fight put up from Crimea, because they were like, yeah, and we don't want to be Ukrainians anyway. And I'm oversimplifying this, but just understand that if you remember when Obama essentially didn't get involved at all and let Russia take Crimea, there was nothing. I mean, it was not much more than a dust-up. You know, they might have had a fist fight or something like that. It was not a battle. The people of Crimea were not saying, oh, no, we're loyal to Ukraine. That did not happen. So that is Russia's side of this. As far as the Ukrainian side of this, how did we get here? Well, we got here because America created this, more specifically the CIA and other people in the, quote, intelligence community and people who want to control other parts of the world. The United States, whether it's for the right reasons or the wrong reasons, wants to control the whole world. Not just the United States, not just the Western Hemisphere. Our people want to control it all. So sometimes that means destabilizing an area, creating a coup opportunity to have a certain part of whatever government pulled out of there, and then we are integral in installing the new government. And that's exactly what happened in Ukraine. I can put a longer video out on this later on so you guys can understand it, but around the 2013-2014 time frame, there were some things that went south in Ukraine, where the existing, back then, Ukrainian leader was supposed to do some stuff and sign. I say do some stuff. That sounds really simple, doesn't it? I'm trying to simplify this so we don't go too far into the weeds. Supposed to sign something to align himself with the European Union, the EU. At the very last minute, he backed out of that and did some pro-Russian things, because the guy was certainly more not a Ukrainian. He was a Russian. And again, simplifying that. And it pissed off the Ukrainian people. So a whole lot of stuff went down. Remember, we were involved in this too, behind the scenes. So a whole lot of stuff went down and we got involved. So I want to explain some of the involvement of Americans and why this has happened. Let me show you this clip from yesterday. You will recognize this person, not only from the lies in Benghazi, but from a whole lot of other stuff involving Ukraine, Obama, and Biden. This is Susan Rice talking to one of these other left-leaning outlets about what happened with Trump, and then I'm going to comment more.
You heard Donald Trump say at the end of that clip you played, this is great television. This was a setup. Volodymyr Zelensky was compelled to agree to a horrible deal that would have sent Ukraine's minerals to the United States without any concrete security guarantees. And yet, because he was trying to improve a relationship with Donald Trump, he came to Washington, he came to the Oval Office, and sat down for a meeting, hat in hand. And soon after he got there, the vice president of the United States lit into him and started a confrontation. Now, I've been in countless Oval Office meetings with heads of state, presidents and vice presidents, as national security advisor, as UN ambassador, and in other roles. I can tell you that the vice president or the secretary of state or anybody else, they don't jump in, hijack a conversation without the express blessing of the president of the United States. So J.D. Vance did that deliberately. Donald Trump knew what he was going to do. And I think, as he said at the end, because he can't, help himself, this was a setup for the cameras. It was a play to his base. But above all, it was a play to Vladimir Putin, to show fealty to Vladimir Putin, and to try to humiliate Zelensky. But Zelensky didn't play along with the script, because Zelensky's got dignity and guts, and Zelensky has people that he democratically represents. And as a result, he couldn't sit there in silence as lies were being told about how the war was started, whose responsibility it was, et cetera, et cetera. And he tried to explain what is in fact the case. To suggest that he was not thankful, I can't count the number of times that Zelensky has thanked the American people, the American government, the President of the United States for the critical support that we provided. It's not about gratitude. It was an effort to humiliate him, to scuttle the U.S.-Ukraine relationship so that Trump no longer feels any obligation to provide support, and to hand U.S. interests and Ukraine and potentially Europe to Putin on a silver platter.
So if we're talking about Susan Rice, Russian military interference in Ukraine would be grave mistake. This was from Susan Rice in 2014, February to be exact, right in the middle of this dust-up that kind of got us where we are today. What happened was we got involved. Susan Rice, who was at the time, I know she was a NATO ambassador at one point, but I don't know what her role was in 2014. Victoria Nuland, which this woman was really involved in a lot of stuff back then. These people were very much involved, including the CIA and the rest of the United States people in the dark, let's just put it that way, in installing the new leadership, if you will, in Ukraine, knowing that we had now had an opportunity because we had destabilized Ukraine enough to where the government was crumbling. So now we took this as an opportunity to put our own people in there. This was the beginning of how Zelensky got in there, because we were going to pave the way to have full control over controlling who went in there no matter what, under whatever circumstance, because now they were going to be beholden to us because we saved them in their little revolution or whatever you want to call it. Now, Victoria Nuland is an evil person. You don't hear her name a lot, but she works in the shadows, and she always has, and she continues to. There was actually a leaked transcript of her and Pyatt working together to try to install the new government in Ukraine during all this upheaval in early 2014. Here's that call.
What do you think?
I think we're in play. The Klitschko piece is obviously the complicated electron here, especially the announcement of him as deputy prime minister. And you've seen some of my notes on the troubles in the marriage right now, so we're trying to get a read really fast on where he is on this stuff. But I think your argument to him, which you'll need to make, I think that's the next phone call we want to set up, is exactly the one you made to Yachts. And I'm glad you sort of put him on the spot on where he fits in this scenario. And I'm very glad he said what he said in response.
Good. So I don't think Klitsch should go into the government. I don't think it's necessary. I don't think it's a good idea.
Yeah, I mean, I guess you think, what, in terms of him not going into the government, just let him sort of stay out and do his political homework and stuff. I'm just thinking in terms of sort of the process moving ahead, we want to keep the moderate Democrats together. The problem is going to be Tony Book and his guys. And, you know, I'm sure that's part of what Yanukovych is calculating on all of this.
I think Yachts is the guy who's got the economic experience, the governing experience. He's the guy, you know, what he needs is Klitsch and Tony Book on the outside. He needs to be talking to them 4 times a week, you know. I just think Klitsch going in, he's going to be at that level working for Yatsenyuk. It's just not going to work.
Yeah, no, I think that's right. Okay. Good. Well, do you want us to try to set up a call with him as the next step?
My understanding from that call, but you tell me, was that the big three were going into their own meeting, and that Yachts was going to offer in that context a three-way, you know, 3+1 conversation or 3+2 with you. Is that not how you understood it?
No, I mean, that's what he proposed, but I think just knowing the dynamic that's been with them where Klitschko has been the top dog, he's going to take a while to show up for whatever meeting they've got. He's probably talking to his guys at this point. So I think you reaching out directly to him helps with the personality management among the three, and it gives you also a chance to move fast on all this stuff and put us behind it before they all sit down and he explains why he doesn't like it.
Okay, good. I'm happy. Why don't you reach out to him and see if he wants to talk before or after?
Okay, will do. Thanks.
Okay, I've now written, one more wrinkle for you, Jeff.
Yeah.
I can't remember if I told you this or if I only told Washington this, that when I talked to Jeff Feltman this morning, he had a new name for the UN guy, Robert Seri. Did I write you that this morning?
Yeah, okay. I saw that.
He's now gotten both Seri and Ban Ki-moon to agree that Seri could come in Monday or Tuesday.
Okay.
So that would be great, I think, to help glue this thing and have the UN help glue it. And, you know, fuck the EU.
No, exactly. And I think we've got to do something to make it stick together, because you can be pretty sure that if it does start to gain altitude, the Russians will be working behind the scenes to try to torpedo it. And again, the fact that this is out there right now, I'm still trying to figure out in my mind why Yanukovych did that. But in the meantime, there's a Party of Regions faction meeting going on right now, and I'm sure there's a lively argument going on in that group at this point. But anyway, we could land jelly set up on this one if we move fast. So let me work on Klitschko, and if you can just keep, I think we want to try to get somebody with an international personality to come out here and help to midwife this thing. And then the other issue is some kind of outreach to Yanukovych, but we probably regroup on that tomorrow as we see how things start to fall into place.
So there's definitive proof that we were directly involved in assigning who was going to be in charge of Ukraine after all these pieces fell and then were put back together. We were going to be putting them back together. And that didn't help anything. This just added to the destabilization in the European era. So coming back to currently, let's talk about Zelensky's goals going into that meeting with Trump. These same people, Susan Rice, that's why she's so mad. You can tell by looking at the video, she is upset. You know why? Because her team, her Obama team, Team Obama, Susan Rice, Victoria Nuland, Anthony Blinken, and, Alexander Vindman of all people, you guys will remember him, did not receive a pardon from Joe Biden, by the way. This team convinced Zelensky not to take the mineral deal last week, not to sign the mineral deal, to negotiate it, but not sign it over there, and go into the meeting with Trump knowing that he had no intention of signing that deal for the minerals unless Trump agreed to boots on the ground or American involvement in Ukraine. Outside of the mineral thing, I'm talking about from a military standpoint. They convinced Zelensky that needed to be brought up. Zelensky is kind of dumb because he's just an actor, but he ain't that dumb. I mean, at some point, he's got to fear for his own life. And he let these people thinking, we got your back. All the Democrats and a lot of the Republicans, including the likes of Lindsey Graham, they convinced Zelensky, most of America are on your side. So you have an opportunity here to get something more than what you negotiated last week. So we want you to do this. And in the process, convinced him to bring this up and to make it an issue and to try to make Trump mad in front of the American people. But it backfired on them because Trump actually stayed pretty cool about it, I thought. And it made Zelensky, he looked very coked out of his mind.
Cocaine is a hell of a drug.
I mean, this guy, to me, looked very unhinged. For an actor, he did a horrible job of acting, and I felt like Trump stayed in his lane and gained respect from a lot of Americans by sticking up for Americans and Americans' money by saying what he told Zelensky. So this was an effort by Susan Rice, the Obama team, and all them that totally backfired on them. Because now Zelensky goes back to Ukraine empty-handed with nothing. Now, we still don't get the mineral deal, so we're not getting repaid with anything. I don't know how that's going to transpire. Maybe there's still a deal that can be made on that. I don't know if these relationships can be mended at this point. Who knows? But there's actually a CIA tie to all this. You know, the USAID type thing that went on. We funnel a lot of money over to different parts of the world, as I've said many times, to destabilize those areas. The CIA doesn't necessarily have a budget on record or on file, but they do have a budget, and it's USAID. The main organization that they have hid from or hid behind, the CIA has, is the National Endowment for Democracy organization. As you can see right here, when I go pull up the search for American money, there is billions of dollars out there that go to USAID, from USAID to these different organizations like National Endowment for Democracy. Again, this is a slush fund for the CIA and other people to go in there, because if you go look and see what it's all about, it's always, every explanation is something to do with democracy. It's something to do about encouraging democracy in other parts of the world. This right here, you can see how much money we're talking about. Department of State is sending $3.35 billion, or has sent $3.35 billion to National Endowment for Democracy to quote unquote encourage democracy in other parts of the world. As you can see, during the Joe Biden years, that number ramped up significantly right off the bat. This is 2020 right here, and as you can see, those 4 years, it spiked during the first year of Biden's administration and went down a little bit, was still significantly higher than any other time in history going to that organization. Now, you might be thinking, yeah, but we don't know where that money went. Well, we kind of do. The cool thing about this website, and again, I encourage everybody to go look at it, is you can actually choose different geographical regions where the money went to. I want you to see this. You see the legend at the far right? Look down at the very bottom. That's more than $13 million is the dark green. Well, we already showed you $3.3 billion going to the democracy scam organization that funds the CIA. Look at the country that's dark green. The only country in Europe that's dark green. Of course, we have Chechnya, Bosnia, Herzegovina, and Kazakhstan that also receive a lot of money, but no one is anywhere near Belarus. Belarus shares a border with Russia and Ukraine. Belarus strategically is a very important place that you don't usually hear a lot about because Ukraine is usually taking all of that heat and all of that news coverage. Do you think the CIA would be stupid enough, especially with the volatile environment between Russia and Ukraine, to send all that money directly to Ukraine? No. They're sending it to Belarus to fund their efforts in Ukraine. It is not a coincidence that the one unspoken country that nobody seems to be talking about just happens to share a huge border with Ukraine, and Ukraine is one of the most corrupt countries in the world. If you took the time to trace the money going to this only country in Europe that is receiving this massive amount of money to, you would likely find a very easily dotted line to a lot of CIA agencies and different people that maybe aren't even on record. So this is a much bigger thing out there than what people are making it out. I think people are trying to oversimplify it because it's easier to wrap your heads around, and it's easier to demonize. I'm no friend of Putin. I think Putin is a scumbag. So this is not a pro-Putin or pro-Russia thing. I'm at least being honest about Ukraine and Russia both being dirtbags. They're both scumbags. Both of them are. But I think that it's very dishonest for us to sit here and try to take the simple way out, which is what everybody is trying to do, and say Putin is just simply trying to expand his borders, that it's that simple. It's not that simple. It goes back to what I said earlier about NATO. Putin does not want NATO on his doorstep. We want to, obviously, we want to expand NATO. I don't think, and that's the other thing, you have to understand this too. The whole NATO thing. You remember Trump said 2 or 3 days ago that Ukraine is not going to be part of NATO? Do you remember that? And a lot of people are like, oh, he shouldn't be saying that. He's made it very clear. If there was even the slightest chance of Ukraine being part of NATO, I can guarantee you Putin would have all bets are off. Putin does not want that. That is probably one of the only things that Putin is going to be hard fast on. No NATO involvement with Ukraine. Trump was smart to say no. Ukraine is not going to be part of NATO because that kept the door open for a peace talk. Let's understand, a peace talk between Putin and Zelensky. I don't think Zelensky necessarily wants peace at this point because I think he believes the dark people in America are going to take care of him. I think that this is the kind of guy that you're going to see that if he pushes his limits and we back completely away and tell him you're on your own, you're going to see him kind of like you saw Gaddafi in Libya, which again, we controlled all that too. We destabilized that country. But you're going to see this guy hide out, try to take all his riches, move all of his money offshore outside of Ukraine, and then you're going to see him fly his private jet to the United States, and somebody will take him in and protect him there. So you will see that. That's the kind of guy that this guy is. But I wanted you all to see that there's a lot going on over here. The last thing that I want to say regarding the Ukraine and Trump thing, all these Democrats that came out running their mouths yesterday, bad-mouthing Trump and saying, we stand with Ukraine. It'll never happen. Raise a hand out there if you think, like I do, that anyone that is loud and really vocal in support of Ukraine right now and just is flabbergasted about this whole deal that didn't happen, and they're not mad that the mineral deal didn't happen. They're mad that Trump sent their meal ticket back home empty-handed with nothing, including no more money and no more money going to the defense people out there who were wanting a forever war out there, that's what they wanted. So all these war hawks out there that have been profiting, now their meal ticket could be coming to an end. I think, and again, it'll never happen, what we should do is take a list of names out there of everybody running their mouth. Take the loudest ones, because I think they're outing themselves as getting that money laundered through Ukraine and back into their own bank accounts, whether those accounts are overseas or whatever. I think those people have outed themselves as the ones getting rich off of the American people via Ukraine and its money laundering scam.
I'm sorry, I thought this was America.